This is the ASUS Strix SCAR 18, the flagship laptop from ASUS's Republic of Gamers family. And this laptop is savage. At least that's what we saw with this $4,500-ish model, which is a lot of money, even by 5090 laptop standards. So what sets this tricked out laptop apart from the pack? Well, we're gonna find out right here, right now on Robeytech, after a word from our sponsors. This video is brought to you by our official Robeytech build mat. If you've been watching the channel for a while, you'll probably recognize it. We love these things. They're super thick and durable, and they're absolutely huge in size, measuring at 5.5 millimeters thick and 24 by 48 inches wide. This one that we have right here, man, this has been in the studio for like 4 years, and it's still holding up great, no problem. We've also included all sorts of useful graphics showing different PC form factor sizes, including schematic diagrams and connectors you'll encounter probably during your PC build. Not to mention, there's plenty of open space for screw and tool organization. We designed it like this so no matter what skill level of builder you are, it could be a helpful tool for pretty much everyone. Now, you can find these build mats for sale on our Newegg store, and it's a great way to support us directly if you enjoy the content we make. Thank you so much for your support, and let's get back to the video. It's no secret that the 16-inch ROG Strix G16 was one of our favorite high-performance gaming laptops from last year. There was a lot to love about it, from the screen to the upgradability to the overall user experience. So when ASUS offered us the opportunity to check out this new flagship laptop, the ROG Strix SCAR 18, we were definitely excited. And just like the Strix G16, we took the SCAR 18 with us this year to Computex, which honestly, it seems like a lifetime ago. But we took some really good notes from our experiences there. We're also going to look at how this laptop performs in creator applications, how loud it is, and how it compares to other 5090 laptops and more. But before we get there, we want to say a thank you to ASUS for sending us the ROG Strix SCAR 18 for this review. Now let's get to know the 2025 ROG Strix SCAR 18, starting with its physical dimensions. The SCAR 18 measures in at just under 16 inches or 399 millimeters wide, just under 12 inches or 296 millimeters deep, and a thickness of about 1.25 inches or 126 millimeters when closed. As for weight, the SCAR 18 weighs over 7 pounds or 3.3 kilograms. This is not a thin and light laptop by any stretch of the imagination, but that's not its aim. The SCAR 18's aim is to bring beastly gamer-focused power and performance, as well as that sweet, sweet drip to the ROG lineup. We're gonna slap the specs of our model up on the screen so you can get a picture of what $4,500 buys you. At least, we're gonna throw the configuration on the screen that ASUS lists on their eStore, but ours, it's a little bit different. It has 64 gigs of RAM versus the 32 listed on ASUS's site. We did find our model at Micro Center with a list price of around $3,800. You know, guys, sometimes getting an exact price for a product is like trying to nail Jell-O to the wall. That's why we said $4,500-ish in the intro, because that was the MSRP. But if those prices are still a bit more than you're looking to spend and you love everything about the packaging, ASUS does have other options starting at around $2,700. Now, the model we're testing today has Intel's Core Ultra 9 275HX CPU with up to an 80-watt TDP paired with an NVIDIA RTX 5090 mobile GPU with up to 170-watt TGP. Like I said, it's a lot of power packed into this thing. Regardless of the spec, the SCAR 18 has one of the best features for upgradability we've seen on a laptop to date. Check this out. By undoing a simple latching system, users get direct access to 2 RAM slots, 2 PCI Gen 5 capable NVMe slots, and the fans. So whether you're upgrading RAM, adding a drive, or cleaning fans, ASUS provided a super easy and toolless way to get inside. But if you're more interested in adding peripherals than adding things internally, the SCAR 18 has plenty of ports, including 3 USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A ports, HDMI 2.1 audio, and 2 Thunderbolt 5 ports. As for connectivity to the internet, the SCAR 18 has both a full-size 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port and Wi-Fi 7, so whether you're wired or wireless, you shouldn't have any issue with speed, as long as your network is set up for it. What you also shouldn't have an issue with is the display. The SCAR 18 has a 1600p mini LED display with a 240Hz refresh rate, full G-Sync support, and a peak brightness of 1200 nits. ASUS calls their display the Nebula HDR display, but we call it beautiful. Now, which is also what we call it when viewers like you hit those like, subscribe, and notification buttons both here at Robeytech and over at Robeytech Live. Honestly, it brings a tear to the eye, or maybe that's just the eye-watering amount of RGB on this laptop. By the way, we're not just talking about a keyboard with per-key illumination. The SCAR 18 has RGB underglow that wraps around the entire bottom of the laptop chassis and a lighted logo on the back of the display. The Strix SCAR 18 also features the ASUS Anime Vision matrix on the display lid with separate animations for powering on and off, standby, and for launching applications. You can keep the default animations, or if you need a bit more positive affirmation in your life, you can customize it with personalized messages like, "I'm really proud of you," or "You do great work," or whatever else you need to hear more of in your life. And speaking of hearing things, you shouldn't have a problem hearing your favorite sounds out of the SCAR 18 speakers. Overall, the listening experience is a positive one. We didn't have any competition between the laptop speakers and the fans, but if you're after richer bass frequencies, you're probably going to want a headset. You're also probably going to want to keep this laptop near an outlet. Even though the SCAR 18 has a 90 watt-hour battery, we only saw an average of around 2 hours and 14 minutes of battery life using the UL Procyon video battery benchmark. But honestly, is anyone really surprised by that? I mean, SAS aside, there are a couple ways to think about this. On one hand, the SCAR 18 has enough battery life to watch through Top Gun Maverick, which is awesome. On the other hand, we're talking about a desktop replacement class laptop here. Its power may come close to replacing a desktop PC, but it doesn't replace its need for something to draw power from. But what you won't need to replace is the touchpad and keyboard. That is, unless your fingers can't be bothered with anything but a mechanical keyboard. While the SCAR 18's keyboard doesn't quite have the clicky feel of the Titan 18 HXAI, it is really a nice keyboard for gaming and typing. It even has a full 10-key pad. So if you really want to flex while working on your spreadsheet skills, using the SCAR 18 for Excel would definitely be a flex. As for the touchpad, ASUS says that they've increased the size by around 36% from the previous generation. While we didn't get to see the previous generation to compare, the overall size does feel good based on the laptop itself. This might be a preference thing here, but the touchpad is slightly offset to align with the main section of the keyboard. We're not mad at it, but actually some of our team kind of prefers it that way, but if you're someone who likes more symmetry, you might not care as much for the placement. Now that you know the hardware and features the 2025 ROG Strix SCAR 18 offers, let's take a look at the gaming performance. Now for reference, we're going to start with native 1600p metrics. Then we're going to share the results with DLSS upscaling and then with DLSS plus frame generation at its highest available setting. Starting with single player games, the SCAR 18 averaged 53 frames per second in Black Myth Wukong and native resolution. Cyberpunk 2077 averaged just around 44 frames per second on Ray Tracing Ultra. Forza Horizon 5 averaged 157 FPS, and Indiana Jones averaged around 118 FPS. Moving on to multiplayer, Marvel Rivals averaged just below 161 FPS, and Fortnite came in with an average of just under 252 frames per second. Adding DLSS in balance mode, Black Myth Wukong averaged 74 FPS, Cyberpunk 2077 averaged just shy of 80, Forza Horizon 5 averaged 166 FPS, and Indiana Jones averaged 146 frames per second. Back to multiplayer, DLSS bumped up Marvel Rivals to an average between 198 and 199 FPS, and Fortnite averaged just north of 251 FPS. And finally, when we add frame generation, Black Myth Wukong averaged 117 FPS, Cyberpunk 2077 averaged just over 243 FPS, Forza Horizon 5 averaged 245, and Indiana Jones rounds out single-player titles with an average just below 318 FPS. Marvel Rivals was left to solo our multiplayer titles, given that Fortnite doesn't support frame generation, with an average frame rate of ever so close to 454 FPS. But what about a more apples-to-apples comparison? If you're looking at the SCAR 18 as an option for your next laptop, how does it compare to similarly spec'd laptops? We're going to introduce you to some new numbers here, but the metric itself is not new. Just know that we're starting to build this out and our charts will fill up over time, and remember, I said similar laptops, not identical. Sometimes manufacturers will use different power settings, making different choices with RAM size and speed, or include drives with different sizes and speeds, so there is a bit of ballparking going on here. However, 3D Mark does an amazing job giving us a true apples to apples in terms of data. We're also going to throw in a 5080 laptop into the mix for some extra flavor in case you like apples with just a hint of lime. So looking at the SCAR 18 and 3D Mark Speedway, it positions itself between the MSI Powerhouse laptops with a score of 6,543. While each of these laptops has a different CPU, they're matched in RAM and GPU, so it's pretty cool to see how they lined up in this benchmark. For anyone curious, this test uses DirectX 12 Ultimate and really pushes features like global illumination and real-time ray tracing reflections. Now the story is a little different when we pop over to 3D Mark Steel Nomad. This benchmark is also using DX12, but it focuses on graphics technologies like volume illumination, procedurally generated grass, and ambient occlusion, to name a few. In Steel Nomad, we see the SCAR 18 fall ever so slightly behind the HP Omen Max 16. Keep in mind, what we're looking at here is a fraction of frames per second difference between these laptops, so the SCAR 18 isn't concerningly lower, this is just the way the averages fell. And speaking of falling averages, we did see a bit of that in our CPU benchmarks, with the SCAR 18 scoring a bit lower than the rest of the pack in 3D Mark CPU profile, as well as in Cinebench. Now, when we dug into our data, we did see that the SCAR 18 was averaging about 14 watts, or around 14.8% lower during our CPU load test than the Omen Max 16. That being said, the SCAR's Cinebench score was around 15.8% behind the Omen, so it's not totally out of line. What is far more in line is when we start looking at the SCAR 18's Puget Bench Creator application scores. Here we see the SCAR and the Omen Max go head to head, with the SCAR 18 coming out on top in After Effects and Photoshop. Now, this could be attributed to our SCAR having double the amount of RAM too, but we are seeing it being competitive in these applications, even though its overall design is tailored more towards gaming. Now, all of the data is great, but what about the experience using the SCAR 18? I mentioned this earlier that we took the SCAR 18 with us to Computex as one of our team's devices while in Taipei. The SCAR was my daily driver, while the MSI Titan was used by Damien, our lead writer here at Robeytech. About halfway through the conference, we switched so that we could compare notes on both from an experience perspective. And without talking about the experience right away, we both arrived at the same conclusion, that the 1600p or 2.5K display on the SCAR affirmed our love for gaming at this resolution on a mobile platform, even with an RTX 5090 mobile inside. With Doom: The Dark Ages having just dropped, I enjoyed what downtime I had bashing demons, while Damien was deep into Expedition 33 during his playtime. Both of us walked away incredibly satisfied by our experience. From what we're seeing in our test titles, we're barely hitting the screen's refresh rate ceiling with DLSS, and most titles, with the exception of Fortnite, aren't even close to the display's native resolution or upscaled. Now, the story is different when we add in frame generation, of course, but we know that everybody feels different about that. Now, real talk though, all of this comes down to how you want to game on a laptop like the SCAR 18. The numbers we're showing are worst case averages. We're not tweaking settings for the best performance, we're cranking up the presets to see the performance at the highest possible graphical setting. So basically, it is possible to get higher averages overall, but if you just want to crank things up to 11 and enjoy, this resolution really helps the hardware shine. Or if you're like the majority of gamers out there that don't even like touching the settings, you're more than likely going to have an amazing experience. Now, we did also use the SCAR 18 to write content. One example was our HX laptop roundup, which we did with Intel. I promise it wasn't all gaming, but overall, the SCAR 18 gave us some solid gaming experiences and work experiences as well. Now, we can't talk about the experience without talking about the thermals and acoustic performance. At idle, the SCAR 18 CPU rested at a temperature of 62 degrees Celsius, while the GPU rested at 40 degrees. This was a bit higher on the CPU side versus laptops like the Omen, but we were also seeing overall higher CPU clock speeds here. As for temperatures under load, the Strix SCAR 18 held CPU temps at an average of 98 degrees Celsius and GPU temps at 64. That is a lot of heat on the CPU, but the SCAR 18's vapor chamber cooling and triple fan solution is technically keeping its 275HX away from the 105 degree thermal max. That being said, even at these higher temperatures, this laptop did not feel hot to the touch, which honestly, that's pretty important because we've seen some laptops that can not only cook from a performance perspective, but they also cook from an, oh my gosh, my lap is on fire perspective. What's also great about this cooling solution is that it's actually pretty quiet when compared to other laptops. While gaming or at about 50% CPU load, we recorded the fans at around 53 decibels, but under full CPU load, it got all the way up to an average of just above 57. Comparatively, that noise level falls in between moderate rainfall and a running dishwasher, neither of which are unpleasant, unless you're worried that the sound of running water is actually water running out of your dishwasher, which that would be bad. With all of the data in mind, would we recommend the 2025 ASUS ROG Strix SCAR 18? Or, to ask this in an even better way, what are some things to think about if you're considering picking up one of these for yourself? From an overall quality standpoint, the SCAR 18 is an incredible gaming laptop. The feel of the keyboard and the touchpad, the gaming experience, and the quality of the display, even the soundscape, all carry a pretty premium feel. It's impressive to look at, and it's a treat for us to use. But while it was a treat for us, it may be less or maybe even more for you. With everything we pointed out, will this roughly $4,500-ish gaming meets desktop replacement laptop provide the experience you're looking for from a mobile platform? Was it amazing for gaming? At 1600p? Absolutely. We loved it and the data reinforced it. Did it get the job done when we needed to do the work? It did, but the limited battery life did tether us to a desk more often than not. And without a 4K display, can it function well for content creators, video editors, and coders on the go? This one is a bit of a stretch. If content creation is your use for a laptop, you're probably going to want a 4K display for your editing pictures or videos, or connect an external 4K display. There's also the question of display type. Does the difference between mini LED or OLED matter to you? If you prefer OLED, you may want to check out the quality spec and OLED equipped HP Omen Max 16. I know we've covered a ton here, but here's the final question worth asking. Do you need the highest performance components that are currently available, or would stepping back to a mobile 5080 or 5070 Ti be a better fit for your needs and your budget? If you need more GPU horsepower, CUDA cores, and VRAM, you're probably not going to want to sacrifice here. But again, you know what your needs are and what makes the most sense for your budget. Since we can't answer those questions for you, what we can do is tell you what we see with the SCAR 18. If you're looking for a desktop replacement or content creation laptop that leaves as little as possible on the table, or if you're looking for a laptop that's kinder on your wallet, you may want to check out some of the laptops we mentioned in this video. Now, the ASUS ROG Strix SCAR 18 is a great gaming laptop, but it does get overshadowed in these categories. However, if your checklist for buying a laptop includes premium mobile gaming experiences, high-powered components, solid construction, and a look that will draw eyes every time you pull it out of the backpack, the ASUS ROG Strix SCAR 18 nails just about every shot. And with that, we're going to close this review out on the ASUS ROG Strix SCAR 18, but we want to know what you think. What do you think of the ASUS design updates for this year's Strix SCAR 18? What do you think about mini LED versus OLED on a laptop? And would you spend the extra for an RTX 5090 model, or would you do like a 5070 Ti or a 5080 version? Let us know all that in the comments below. Now, while you're down there, why don't you go ahead and slap that subscribe button, hit that like button, and ring that notification bell so you get a notification each and every time we post a video like this here at Robeytech and over at Robeytech Live. And if you want to talk more about this, maybe just want to have a conversation, head over to our Discord server, discord.gg/Robeytech. Amazing place to meet other tech and PC enthusiasts that love to talk about these very same things. And you know what? You might just make a friend. Thank you so much for making it this far. Make sure you follow us on Robeytech on all the other social media. Have an absolutely amazing day, and we'll see you on the next episode.